As I was working on this bike, it's an old like department store bike that my uncle actually gave to me. They bought it and it didn't work right, and they never took interest in biking. So this thing would not shift gears at all when I got it. It must have been sitting for too long, either that or it wasn't assembled correctly to begin with. So since it's a department store bike, and I mean, they're usually cheap components, but at least all the components on here bear the Shimano name, even though they're not part of a group set. So I'm guessing that this was probably at one time, probably back in like 2008, this was probably about $180 or $200 bike, because it does seem to be on the higher end. And as you can tell, it is a hardtail. I'll put a picture of it. But anyway, after a little bit of playing around, I watched some YouTube videos and figured it out eventually here. So right now it's in first gear. So if I keep pedaling, and it makes a little bit of noise because of the chain shot. It must have stretched out or got rusty. So I might have to take it in to get a new chain. So it's staying in first gear now. Now I'll go one click. Now it's going to go into second gear. As you can tell, it's in second. Third click. Or third gear. Goes into third gear without much of an issue. And then we have fourth. So now it's on the fourth sprocket. And it's going to grind a little bit in these ones because these front derailleurs have micro adjustments on these cheap bikes. So when you shift gears back here, you also have to micro adjust for the gears up front. So, wrong direction. Fifth. So now it's in second to last. And it's rubbing up here too. That's what the noise is. And the chain's making noise too. So now we'll get up into sixth. Bam. Now it's going good in sixth. You can tell the tire's spinning pretty fast too. So now we'll go a couple back into five. Back into four. Wrong direction. Back into three. Back into two. And these are going better than, a lot better. Keep going the wrong direction. That was when I got it. So that usually goes under one. Now the front derailleur was a bag of cats, because in this regard the front derailleur was not put on right. Like, I started trying to shift it, and the first two gears actually worked, but the middle sprocket was on the third index on the shifter, and the inner sprocket was on the first. So I tried adjusting the limits to get higher so that it could go on there, and as soon as I cranked it and started pedaling, it started clanging on me, and clanging pretty good. So I looked, and what happened was the inside cage. I'll have to see if I can show on there. So if you can see my hand. That inside cage part did not clear the middle sprocket, so the middle sprocket was hitting the inside cage. So I had to loosen this adjustment bolt and move it up on the post a little bit, and I was still having issues, and actually when I was in the bottom one, or in the inside ring, it was actually rubbing on this pin here, So to solve that, I actually had to tilt the cage back a little bit more than you're supposed to. And after that, it was flawless. So I'll see if I can pop it into a somewhat neutral gear here. Don't want to pedal backwards. I did that once and almost popped the chain off. So yeah, that's somewhere in the middle of the cassette, so it won't cross chain too much. The chain shot anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's too rusty, and I might have to get changed out anyway. I don't keep spools of chain around. So I don't really have to show that, but I'll just look with my eyes, see which way I'm going. So that's a far inside shift point. So watch this. After maybe it needs to be on a closer gear. There we go. Yeah, it needs to be on a closer gear. So it's on third in the back. So that's the first speed on there. I'm learning this though. I've never done or actually had some sort of success on these. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 positions per index on this because of the micro adjustments. So now it's going to go into the second one, and let me take it into the third one here. Put my head on the other side. And then it's 2 into the third because there's only 1 micro adjustment on the third. Bam, now it's on the third chain ring. So now I have to go 3 clicks back. To get it to kick back in. Because you gotta do a little bit of finessing with these cheap bikes to get them going. So there's the second one. Yeah, it's a little confusing, so I'm kind of leaning my head around the front wheel here. And now it's back on the inside chain ring. So now these Shimano's are about backwards as far as these rear derailleurs here. Actually, when you're in high gear, that's when you have the less tension on your derailleur. So what I did is I shifted it all the way into the highest gear, and even though it only popped on the 5th sprocket here, it didn't pop onto the 6th sprocket like it's supposed to, because this is a 6-speed. Yeah, 6-speed sprocket. It won't pop onto the smallest one like it was supposed to. So what I did was I tightened the barrel adjusters. There's one here, and there's one up by the grip. So with those tightened down, I disconnected this bolt and pulled it as tight as I can by hand. So then I tightened the bolt back down on it. So then it actually popped onto the 6th sprocket like it's supposed to. After a little bit of adjustment with barrel connectors, I had to loosen this one just a little bit. Then I had to loosen that one. You turn them counterclockwise, and that's how you loosen them, and it actually puts more tension on the cable. So I adjusted that, and I started shifting up and down. And I kept adjusting these until I found a balance point. Because at one point it went up through the cassette fine, but then when I tried to downshift, it won't downshift correctly. I had to jump back and forth between gears. So then I had to spin these barrel adjusters clockwise a little bit. So once I did that, then I was able to get it to shift up and down the cassette just fine, except for this first gear here, which is a big one in the back. It won't pop onto that. So I had to go over to the side here, and on this one you have the high limit or the low limit adjustment screw on this side. I accidentally spun it a little bit, but it shouldn't matter that a little bit. Then you have the high limit on this side. This adjusts the limit going towards the 6th sprocket here, the smallest one, and this one on this side adjusts the limit going towards this sprocket, the one in the back. So I had to play around with that one a little bit to get to actually go onto this sprocket. Then I kind of went too far with it. I kind of went all the way out with it to where that end was flush with the plastic, and it started slamming the chain against the dork disc. I was actually lucky that this dork disc was here, or else I would have ended up with a chain in the spokes, and that wouldn't have been good. So this was kind of my first time actually playing around with these. I normally take them to the bike shop and be like, here, fix this, but it's something I wanted to learn so that I could actually fix it out in the field if I do go biking and something malfunctions in the field. At least I have some basis of knowledge to work with this stuff. So then I had to tighten the screw back down and bring the limit in a little bit. So then that kept, I actually split the dork disc too. So that, yeah, I split it right there. Might eventually remove that. So that got onto the final sprocket. So then when I brought back in this, it stopped working on this this shorter sprocket here, the 10 or 11 tooth or whatever it is. So I actually had to spin the barrel adjusters clockwise a little bit, and you can see that cable's fraying a little bit there. But spun them clockwise a little bit, then had to spin them counterclockwise a little bit. It's like trial and error. There's a balance point somewhere in there, and eventually in that adjustment period I found like a happy medium to where it goes up and down just fine. So that's how I did it for the rear one. And like I said, for the front one, the first gear is actually where it places the least tension on it, so I shifted it into first after I discovered that this was not clearing the 2nd sprocket. So I shifted it into first, and I undid the cable. Then I undid that post mount. Then I was able to slide it around a little bit, and I played around with the position first so I could get it to shift back into there. And then I also had to adjust the high limit to get it into the final sprocket. And you can do that too. Like sometimes you can pull these by hand, and you can figure out where the limits are by doing that. And then if it's not bumping it, because you can look on these and yours might not be the same, but it's hard to tell because this is upside down. If you get your head in there, you can see if it's bumping the limit screws at any point. So that's why I did. If it's not bumping the limit screw on the high end, and the end that requires more tension, then you can introduce more tension by spinning the barrel adjuster clockwise. And I don't think the front derailleur has a barrel adjuster on it, so there's only the one on the shifter. So yeah, you spin that counterclockwise, it puts more tension on it. But same thing, you play around with that until you get the positions you need to bring it in there. And like I said, a lot of these cheap bikes have micro adjustments on the front derailleur shifter, so they're not indexed nearly as well as the rear shifter is, because even the rear shifter, it says SIS on it, which stands for Shimano Indexing System, and this one I didn't see such marking on it. So yeah, the front derailleurs have those micro adjustments, and that's why they're kind of a bag of cats to work with. But the bike shop might fine-tune my work here, but at least I know how it works, just in case I have to fix this myself and I'm on a pinch and can't bring it to the bike shop.